And we're live. It is Monday. It is the 12th of May. It is 8 o'clock a.m. And I did not do my research on the 12th of May, so I'm going to pull up the Wikipedia article on the subject and tell you a little bit about the 12th of May. It is in 254, the year that Pope Stephen succeeds Pope Lucius I, becoming the 23rd Pope. And you'll be gratified to know he immediately took a stand against Novantianism. And I share, I'm really glad he did, because in my experience, there is no greater threat than Novantianism. In 1821, the first major battle of the Greek War of Independence against the Turks was fought in Valtezzi. And of course, in 1926, the Italian-built airship Norge becomes the first vessel to fly over the North Pole. It is 8:01 a.m. And look, I am told that it is going to be a rainy day, and I'm looking forward to the rain because yesterday was the fourth annual sunflower planting outside the Russian embassy, and I am excited about the fact that it is going to rain most of the week. But for now, anyway, the sun is shining, the birds are chirping. I am confident that rain or shine, it is going to be a great freaking day. And I'm going to save the next line. I'm not going to say it yet because Holly and the cactus told me they are joining, but we're going to be a little bit late. And I don't want to steal the cactus's thunder. Instead, we're just going to hold off at this climactic moment. We're going to defer the gratification of the key line while I tell you a little bit about yesterday's sunflower planting. So, yesterday at 6 p.m., some of you were there, but only a few, only the DC-based fanatics. But some of you were there, and I really appreciate that. We gathered at the Russian embassy to plant sunflowers. And yes, this is the fourth time we did it. It's only been 3 years, but we did it at the beginning of the war. So we did it once at year 0. We have now had 3 years of full-scale war and 4 sunflower plantings. And yesterday, for the first time, we were allowed to plant on the whole field that is across the street. We have never been allowed to plant by that because the landowners were a little bit grouchy about it. And so we set up this complicated diplomatic protocol in which we planted on the city side, but not on the private side. The people who owned that property sold it, and the developers who bought it, we are pro-developer on this show, because the developers who bought it said, plant on the field, what a lovely idea. We're not actually going to start construction until the fall. And so, and of course in DC, the permitting process means it may take a fair bit longer than that. So in the meantime, have at it. And they even mowed the field for us, which was, super cool of them. And so we showed up. There were probably about 60 people, and we planted a large plot. We marked it off with bricks. And yes, for those of you who are listening from the goddamn Russian embassy, I installed hidden cameras, 3 of them, from different places, all on private property. You touch my goddamn cameras, and I am filing a police report. I did it with the permission of 3 separate landowners. So you steal my cameras, and I am coming for your ass. All right? And those cameras are protecting the sunflowers. And See, we deferred gratification on the key line, and Holly showed up, and the cactus showed up. And so, it's going to be a great freaking day. I'm confident of it. Why, Holly?
You're watching Dog Short TV, an epic revolution in morning
Uh,
television.
uh, Wait a minute. Are people hearing Holly?
Oh,
This
can
is
you not
my
hear me?
issue, not Holly's issue. So maybe I won't have a great day because you are watching Dog Shirt TV, but I'm not. I don't have my headpiece in.
Yeah, I just see in all caps, Holly is fine. I am fine,
Yeah,
John
Holly's fine,
Hawkinson.
and she's got an Abraham Lincoln shirt,
I
and
do. I got
that
this at the Lincoln Cottage, which is a fantastic off the beaten path DC historical site.
wow.
Have you been?
No.
You've got to go.
And I've actually never been to the Frederick Douglass house either.
Neither have I. It just reopened after years, and I've
Well,
been meaning to go. We should go together.
we should go together.
We should have a little field trip.
We should have a field trip and maybe make a little video.
Yeah. We
Um,
should. Yeah. And then we
yeah,
can drink South African wine
and we can drink South African wine.
and do your
Um,
makeup.
that last bit's a little bit of a non sequitur for anybody who doesn't get the joke, but for those who do, which is to say, everybody watching this show, anyway, all of which is a long way of saying that you are watching Dog Shirt TV, and it is a goddamn revolution in morning television. And one of the revolutionary features, of which there are many, is that after a week away, Holly will just text me, I'm coming on today, but I'm going to be late because I have to get a kid somewhere. Um, and I will say, cool. And I will change the introduction to the show so that the key line is said 6 minutes later than it normally is after the monologue rather than before the monologue to accommodate the schedule. And she will show up wearing an Abraham Lincoln shirt, and that will trigger a slight tangent on DC tourist attractions. And another one of the revolutionary features, because as I say, there aren't just a few, there are quite a number of them, is that sometimes she will send me from Texas a picture of herself with a giant cactus going like this. And I will just post it on Dog Shirt Daily as a caption contest. And you all will fill out captions, and then she will show up on the show, and I will say, so Holly, how was your trip? What's the story with that picture of you and a giant cactus, and is it the cactus, and does the cactus actually acquire corporeal form when you're in Texas and it is on mission, and who was it trying to kill? I might ask a question like that. And for those of you who are not in on the lore of Dog Shirt TV, that may sound like gibberish, but those of you who are in on the lore know that it's gibberish. So, Holly, what's the story with that picture of you and the cactus? And is it the cactus? And was the cactus acquiring large corporeal form because it was on some kind of mission with you in Texas? And who was the target?
Well, I'm not gonna comment on I'm not gonna comment on any of that because it's all classified, except I will say that that is outside a Mexican restaurant in Austin, and I took a picture. Is that what I'll say? Is it the same cactus? I don't know. The cactus's travel is all classified.
Well, should we ask the cactus?
Let's see. Cactus, was that you in Austin? Was that you in Austin?
Yeah, the cactus doesn't even condescend to Glomar
He's
us.
he's
It
masterful at this. I don't know if you know, like the beating of the interrogation techniques
just by
is
repeating the
it is
questions.
top notch. I mean,
Yeah.
people study this at the CIA. They do. He teaches the class. In fact, he teaches the class on beating your interrogators. and that's his
By driving them slowly and
that's right.
steadily and
Anyway,
saying,
I'm
yeah,
not going to comment on his activities or if that was him, was he in Austin? What was he doing? I won't comment on any of that, but I will say that if I'm out and about and I see a cactus in any form, I sent you a picture from Boston because our Airbnb in Boston had a cactus painting, and I also sent you I find that really intriguing. Both my recent trips, there was a cactus. I mean, what is going on?
interesting. All right. This seems like an important moment at which to ask Holly if she knows the story of the Glomar Explorer
I
and where
do.
the phrase Glomar comes from.
I do, or I should say I did at one point because it was a CIA operation.
It was.
They have a whole exhibit in the museum. Yes, Howard Hughes was involved.
Howard Hughes was involved, and a giant boat with a claw
Yeah.
that could reach down to the bottom of the ocean and grab a submarine. And by the way, the lawyer who had to respond to that FOIA request um, lived long enough, I think may still be alive for all I know, but had to formulate an answer to the question, did Howard Hughes build a giant boat with a claw to reach down to the bottom of the ocean and grab a Soviet submarine and haul it up? Um, and um, lived long enough to explain, I can't remember if it was This American Life or Radio Lab, that the only answer he could figure out how to give that would say nothing is that he could not confirm or deny that any documents existed. And that is where the phrase glomar, to glomar
Oh,
something
right.
as a
That's right.
verb, comes from, because it comes from the litigation, the FOIA response in this litigation over the Glomar Explorer. And so whenever Holly says she cannot confirm or deny or see, if you just say I can't comment on, it implies that there's something there, right? Like if I say to you, was the cactus on mission? And you say I can't comment on any aspect of the cactus's mission, that tends to confirm that there was a mission. But if you say I cannot confirm or deny that the cactus was on mission, or that there was a cactus, or that any cactus would uh, be of such a character as to have a mission, then that becomes the Glomar response, which does not even accept the premise of the question. Jonathan Rauch, who is not a Mormon woman and whose Chiron will ever reflect that until he figures out how to change it, has joined the show. Jonathan, do you know the story of the Glomar Explorer?
Oh my goodness, it's been so many years. It was back in the 70s, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Wasn't that the surreptitious mining ship that turned out to be a CIA operation?
With a giant claw to reach down to the bottom of the ocean floor and grab a Soviet submarine.
That's right. It comes back to me a little
And do you
bit.
know what happened when it grabbed the Soviet submarine?
I do. Boom.
Yeah, the Soviet submarine broke in half, and
And
it only got half of it.
and we don't really know which half, right?
I think we
It
don't
never
know which
told us.
half, although Holly does. But we don't really know,
Maybe, I don't know. I'm very bad with details, so all the de
which is
all the
what you
details
want in your,
if I at this point in my life, if I don't immediately need a detail, it's not going to stay in the brain very long.
which is what you want in your CIA analysts. Bad with details.
Well, I mean, but see, those details you're using, so I keep those.
Right.
It's an
Anyway,
official
we
filing.
don't know, but we do know that the Glomar Explorer, half of the Soviet submarine that it got was really useful,
It was.
and we learned a lot. And so, yes, Howard Hughes was a nut, but sometimes the CIA pulls off these really wacky, great operations, and building a ship with a giant claw, like those games where you put like, and then you grab a toy. I'm convinced that that's what provoked the whole thing. And anyway, that's the story of the Glomar Explorer. And remember, anytime you don't even want to dignify the question by accepting the premise. You can always just say, I cannot confirm or deny, and then whatever the premise of the question is. And that's your best no comment. And the best lawyers at the CIA thought this through and came up with this, and it has served this country very well ever since. And it's called glomaring
Well, I didn't
something.
say that because I think everyone knows that the cactus is there's something going on.
Holly confirms the cactus's operational status. There you go. So, Holly, what is on your mind this morning? And Jonathan Rauch, what is on your mind this morning?
Who want Jonathan can go first if you
No,
want.
you should go first. You were here first.
Oh, okay. Last week I was away. Sadly I was on a whole tour of friends in Texas who are seriously ill, and then ending in Houston at my nephew's Rice graduation. And so it was a heavy week, but it was a good week with friends. But I did want to comment on the Rice graduation was very interesting and very inspiring because and I haven't been to like these things, I went to a crappy little white evangelical college, and most everybody there was white evangelicals, and that was also a very, very long time ago. Um, I did go to my PhD graduation at Oklahoma, but I don't remember that really. Anyway, my point is this was an opportunity for me to see like a pretty elite college graduation. Um, and I'm telling you, it just struck me once again in the context of all these international students being off, disappeared, and just the Trumpian assault on diversity. Um, just what a loss all of this is and could be, because I'm telling you, this graduation was a United Nations. I think they only have about 15% international students.
See,
And
but that's but Holly, that's the point. We hate the United Nations.
yeah, anyway.
We want we don't want the United Nations is bad.
Well, but see, well, first of all, not everybody who could have, I may have been making assumptions about I was definitely making assumptions about who was an international student and who wasn't, because by the numbers, there's only 15% international students. But it was very clear that then a large number on top of that were recent immigrants, because the families it was amazing. The fashion was amazing. Everybody was decked out in their like national, saw a lot of African fashion, which I deeply appreciated. I was wearing African fashion, which they probably didn't know what to make of that. But it just struck me again, like the diversity, the talent. You just saw just a sort of microcosm of the magnet of talent that U.S. elite universities draw, in one graduation. And then the speaker was this, and I'm sad to say that, again, a detail that has left my brain is the name of the speaker. But she was a very inspiring person. She was a Lebanese neuroscientist who had, among other things, discovered a cure, not only the cause, but then developed a cure for a rare genetic syndrome called Rett's.
Dr. Huda Zogby,
That's it,
according
yeah.
to John Hawkinson,
Yes, and she
whose
was
Google
so
fingers are faster than
inspiring.
mine.
And so she basically just told her life story, and then, which it's one of those things in the Trump era where just the plain facts of a story or case speak volumes. Like, she did not have to amplify like her overall point. So she talked about being a refugee from the Lebanon civil war. It interrupted her medical school, and then she fled as a refugee to the US, again, refugees. And then it was the school year had she was able to convert her refugee visa to a student visa, which she made a point of saying the immigration policy at the time allowed me to do this. And then she found the only medical school she could find to take her at short notice was a historically black medical school in Nashville, who that I had never heard of. And they admitted her just based on an interview, and because she hadn't gone through any of the proper procedures. Anyway, so basically she took a very non-traditional path that certain individuals basically gave her, help along the way. And that's how she was able to and then she got a residency at Baylor. Again, she didn't go to elite school. She didn't have a traditional path, but she was able to get these opportunities. And then she talked about benefiting from the Human Genome Project. And she had mentioned that it
So
was
you got
fun.
science,
Yeah.
government-backed
She
science in the
mentioned that it
picture.
was funded by NIH, and I was very proud. I started a stadium-wide, I believe I started it, applause for the NIH, so I was very proud of
Well,
that.
as an NIH brat on both sides of my family, I thank you for that.
Yes. And then she applauded, and she said, yes, we should applaud the NIH. Um, and then she mentioned that the Human Genome Project, or maybe it was another NIH grant she had gotten, came in under budget and ahead of schedule. So she had kind of a dig there. Anyway, it was nothing. My Trumper parents were there. But they did not mention what they thought of her story. But it's like one of those things where, like, just the facts of her story, which are completely unobjectionable, are now like it sounds political, do you know?
Right. Well,
Um,
if you declare war on truth, then speaking the truth becomes very political.
that's what I mean. Everything, democracy is political. And I find this in conversations with my Trumper relatives where, we'll be talking about African democracy, and I'll be making a political statement that goes over their heads. They like agree with me that oh yeah, it was a very good thing that the South African government barred Jacob Zuma from running for president again because he was a convicted felon. Yes, oh yes, wonderful. That's so fantastic. I'm like, isn't it though, So it's too bad that, however, a lot of those people are just completely oblivious, but that's another whole thing. Um but yeah, it was very inspiring. It was long. I thought I might I know we're sitting on the stadium seats. My parents, by the way, John, were in a separate area in like old people, comfy chairs.
Well, I would
They're
just
elderly.
like to say that, um, on his personal webpage, Jonathan Rauch has the number of years that he has gone without a MacArthur Genius Award. And my version of that, although I have also gone just a few short years fewer without a MacArthur Genius Award, is that I have still never been asked to be the commencement speaker anywhere. And I'm not bitter about it or anything, but I have noticed that nobody asks me to be the commencement speaker, and it hurts my feelings. Um, Jonathan,
Well,
what
it's
is
a goal.
it? But it's a goal that I can't achieve. Somebody else has to
I
achieve
don't
it
know.
for me.
Probably a
I
lot.
can only whine about it.
You could
And
start
so,
a campaign like among. You need to cultivate more like college age fans.
but they don't really choose their commencement speakers either. Isn't it
Yeah, but
like
they could lobby. I don't know.
middle-aged university
Yeah,
administrators
I
who
don't
I
know
have
how
to
these things
cultivate?
happen. I don't know.
Jonathan Rauch, what is on your mind this morning?
Well, I have a little multiple choice survey. Can I put it in the chat?
You can actually, I think I can put a, oh wait, is there no survey function on, um, uh, there doesn't seem to be a survey feature on. So yeah, you can put it in the chat, but you also have to read it out loud because remember that there are people on YouTube who will see this who don't have access to the chat.
Yeah, that's fine. Let me just see if I can make this work. I can't seem to figure out how to change to not a Mormon woman, but I guess since it's a true
Yeah,
statement.
well, since it's true, on both elements of it are true.
Oh,
Uh,
is this the airplane?
yeah, I'm multiple choice quiz. Why does Trump want an airplane?
I think all of the above, don't you think?
Wait, we got to read it out
Oh,
loud,
sorry,
Holly.
sorry,
So,
sorry.
so choice A, he wants an airplane. Choice B, he's trolling us. Choice C, he's showing rules don't matter. And choice D, it's a quid pro quo for which we don't yet know the quo.
Yeah. I think it's all of the above, except didn't he? I thought last time he was president, didn't he like remodel Air Force One just the way he wanted it?
Or he started a process to redo Air Force One, but I think then he got booted out of office and it never happened,
Oh, it did not happen?
and he's very angry about it.
Okay.
Um,
Well, I will say the gilded, someone mentioned the Middle Eastern like shake aesthetic is definitely his style. He likes that aesthetic. That is his preferred decor from what I can tell is the Middle Eastern shake.
yeah, the sort of it's part Middle Eastern sheikh, it's part Russian oligarch, um, it's a and not just Middle Eastern sheikh, it's a Gulfy aesthetic.
It's even some African situation. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
that too.
it's dictator chic.
Yeah, it's dictator chic. Yeah.
Um, all right, so can I can I suggest that all four of your proposed answers are really the same answer? Um, that he wants an airplane that shows that he's above the rules, that trolls people, that um, you know, and he may be willing to give something in exchange for it. Why are those even distinct from one another?
Mhm.
Well, I suppose I could have added E all of the above, but that would have made it too easy. I'm actually interested in what goes through his mind when he does something like
I
this.
have no idea. I think he's a kid in a toy shop. He sees the 30 dolls and he wants all the 30 dolls. And so it doesn't like it's just I want that. Yes, and I want that. So I don't think a lot
So,
goes through his mind.
how many laws is he breaking?
Um,
Or at least rules?
I mean, how many laws has he broken total? You should
No,
really
no,
keep running tab on
this airplane
just the
alone.
airplane alone. Hmm.
Well,
It's
so
emoluments. There's ethics rules. I suppose they're not laws, but
They're
they're
not
not supposed to
laws.
take gifts over a certain amount
We
without.
fired all those people.
so look, I mean, people give the president gifts all the time, and the president is actually allowed to receive them, but receive them as the representative of the United States, and they don't become his personal property. The um, so I don't think there's a foreign emoluments clause problem with Qatar giving the United States in the person of a president a gift any more than there's a problem with the state of France giving us the Statue of Liberty. The problem is the idea that, first of all, it's a personal gift to him that he will then convert to be the property of the Trump library when he leaves office. Um, I don't know what the law of that is. And I don't, my guess is it's not a foreign emoluments clause problem. It's like a conversion of public property problem. But my best guess is that, to have a law against something, you have to imagine that somebody would do it. Um,
That's
and,
the whole problem with this entire era, by the way.
exactly.
Is
Ex-
like, come on, founding fathers, you're not thinking big enough, you know?
Right, and the corporate form really screwed up the founders' imagination, right? So, the founders imagined, representatives of England or France with bags of cash or promises of, a duchy, right? Screwing up, corrupting people. They didn't imagine the way that you could launder this through the Trump organization operating, you know,
They
cryptocurrencies.
didn't imagine meme coin. Why would
Right.
they not think
They
of
were
that?
really behind on the meme coin
Yeah,
thing. And it turns
that's
out
on them.
if you create layers and layers and layers of, bullshit designed to obfuscate the violation of the rule, even while you're violating the rule in plain sight, it actually works.
Mhm.
Not not in normal life, because we have this thing called conspiracy law, right? Conspiracy to, take an illegal gift and do blah 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 with it. But then you add to the conspiracy a degree of presidential immunity, and you add to, you add these layers of protection, and it becomes very hard to see how you could ever get to it with anything other than political shame. And of course, political shame requires that somebody actually be capable of experiencing shame.
As a former Intel person, I have to say, fine, 100%, that thing is loaded with bugs and surveillance equipment. Like scrubbing that thing they're basically, if they were, I mean, I don't think he cares, and so he'll probably just fly it around as is. But if the intelligence agencies had anything to do with it, they would probably have to take that thing apart for
Wouldn't
it
the
to be
Secret Service
usable.
demand that?
Huh?
Wouldn't the Secret Service demand that?
Ben, again, I think you're operating in a framework that we've just blown up. I think he can do whatever he wants to do, and if that means flying a jet around that's full of probably Iranian, doesn't Qatar have ties to Iran? Probably
Qatar has ties
Iranian.
to everybody.
Yeah, so they kind of they're very interesting. They kind of play all the sides, and they're I don't know how they get away with that, but that's another whole matter. But I mean, it's probably just chock full with techno surveillance shit, and he's just gonna he can do, but he wants to fly his plane. It's a very nice plane, and he wants to ride on his plane. You
All
know.
right. So, Jonathan, question. Do you think this is actually going to happen, or do you think it's the kind of thing that they put out there, they say they're going to do, a la opening Alcatraz, and they measure the response, um, and then they don't actually do it?
Oh, I don't have any idea, and I didn't get past the headline in the first graph, so I don't actually know if a plane has been conveyed or merely promised, or what the status of this actually is. Do you happen to know?
I mean, my impression is that it has been offered. I don't, does it even exist yet?
Yeah, does it even exist?
Yeah, I don't know, but I did see that Laura Loomer is not happy. She thinks this is a bad look for
Right.
the very very highly esteemed administration that has no bad looks. This is a bad look.
It makes, was it Bill Clinton's haircut on Air Force One? Or is it,
Yeah, well, that was a haircut, and and he did pay for it, right?
and
The issue was that it cost a lot of money. It was an
Mm,
expensive haircut
yeah.
that he paid for. This is giving him the plane, and he
Also,
doesn't pay for it.
I
I
feel like
was
whatever
going to
they're
say
doing.
this shows a failure of imagination on Bill
Right.
Clinton's part.
Oh, why have all the previous presidents not they're probably the ones that care about money and are still alive, which is I don't think there's that many of them. They're like kicking them why didn't they get a plane? They could have
Right.
had a plane.
Right.
I suspect it will really happen. I suspect he wants the plane.
I think he wants the plane.
All right. I'm going to go with it won't happen. And the reason is not that I disagree with you guys, but that I think Laura Loomer speaking out about it will actually empower some Republican senators to, um, and Holly's point about it being loaded with bugs. If you're Tom Cotton and the chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, you've got to be at least a little bit concerned about that.
Why
Um,
would they start now? He's like BFS with Vladimir Putin. I just like we've just blown past everything like so long ago.
and yet there are still um like you can say the Alcatraz thing, but I don't believe that Alcatraz is actually going to become a federal prison again. Uh,
Okay. Well, we thought the military parade, it was canceled during the first one, and now it's,
let's talk about that because I think we need to
what are
do
we going to
something.
do?
Yeah, exactly. This is a
I don't want
um
to get shot,
I don't
just
want
for
to
the
get shot
record.
either. And I actually don't want to get arrested, but I think we
Preferably
should
not.
do something.
We do.
Is it a mass cricket release along the road of the parade?
Well,
Um,
here's my question, and sorry, Jonathan. Sorry, did you have anything further to say before I rudely go on a whole thing on this? Okay, cool.
No, I have an idea for the parade, but we can come
Oh,
to that later.
all right. So here's I'm plugged into the whole protest schedule of events out there. And Indivisible, which is one of the major organizations that organize these protests, they are organizing protests all around the country, everywhere
except
DC.
Washington.
And so I'm wondering, like, what is the reasoning? I know. So here's what I don't understand. I understand maybe they don't want people to get shot and they're afraid that people might get shot. And so they don't want to like schedule a rally that would like take over the whole route or whatever.
I think they
But
also
what
don't want to have big crowds associated with the parade because people would interpret that as people coming
Right,
to the
right.
parade.
Okay, but can we not, what would happen if we go to the parade and just hold up signs? Like, is that, we don't create problems, we just hold up a sign. Is that going to be bad? Are we going to get arrested?
Oh, I don't think you can be arrested for holding up a sign. The
Again, Ben, I think you're thinking in the past.
the question is whether you could get enough people to do it that it would be useful.
I mean, if they put it out there, indivisible or 5051, I mean, people, the Tesla takedown people, we could, I mean, a lot of people want to go hold signs. I just don't want to get shot or I arrested at this point. I don't really. I'm mixed on that. I would get arrested. I just don't want to. I want to. I don't want to get shot or
I would happily get arrested as part of a large group, but I'm not interested in actually sorry, the dogs are having a little war at my feet here. And
That's okay.
I need to
It is
separate them.
dog shirt daily.
It is dog shirt daily.
Dog fight daily.
Yeah, one of the dogs just bit my foot
Oh,
too, which hurt. Um, so I think what we really want to do is have a large walk, a mass walk along the route of the parade just behind it. Like 100 yards behind the parade, 100,000 people follow the route of the parade and walk silently.
we can't have signs. I think we got to have signs though. But Jonathan,
Signs are cool.
let's hear from Jonathan. What's your idea? We don't want to get shot. I don't mind getting arrested if like it's not like I'm doing something that is within my right. Like if they've said like if they put out a notice saying like even if it's unconstitutional that anyone with a sign is going to get arrested, I would think about that. But I think they can't do that.
No, they can't do that. You're allowed to have
Yeah.
a sign.
Okay, well,
Um,
I'm going with a sign. I don't care if I'm the only one.
behind the parade or standing along the route.
Standing along the route.
You need a big sign.
Yeah. We need a banner is what we need. Although they could ban that. I just don't know that. I'm going to have to look into this. Jonathan has an idea though. He's going to have the solution.
A lot of people should show up in drag.
I love that idea. Just
No
have a
signs are
giant
necessary.
drag audience.
What
Mhm.
does female drag look like? Because I think I wear that most days, actually. I think I'm wearing that now. Do I need to cut my hair?
I just think you have to show you don't take it seriously. And you have to do something which communicates your disdain for it without having to read a lot of words and get in anyone's face.
What about a
So,
clown costume?
fine.
King, Burger King hat, Burger King crown.
No,
Anyway,
because
we
some
got
people
some
could
time.
misinterpret that.
The good news is we have some time, and I will not let this go. I feel like we cannot just let this go. We need to do something.
All right, so here is everybody's assignment. In addition to leaving captions for the picture of Holly and the cactus in the Dog Shirt Daily comments, leave ideas for creative, legal, not going to get you shot protest activity, not involving lasers because it will be daytime. Lasers are useless during the day. And give us ideas. We're going to be talking about it over the course of the next few days and weeks. As Holly says, we've got some time. Um, uh, so Richard suggests waving Ukrainian flags.
Ukraine is great. That's
So
a good idea.
it's great, except for some a real important problem. If a large number of people showed up and screwed up the thing with Ukrainian flags, he would blame Ukraine. And we don't want the blowback to
Okay.
be in the form of him getting mad at Ukraine.
Okay.
I've been thinking about cricket releases myself. They're ideal indoors,
Yes.
which, this is the thing about crickets is they do expand to fill the space. And I love the idea of indoor cricket releases, but outdoor, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that's gonna work.
so, yeah, so like give us ideas. We're here. I love the idea of a large number of people turning up in drag. I would even turn up in drag.
Well, you have all the
But
makeup. You
somebody
just
would
need to
have
get
to
some
help me
clothes.
with it.
You need to get
Um,
some outfits. I don't know.
I've never done that before, but I would totally go to
How
a
about Marie Antoinette? You would look very good as Marie
can I
Antoinette.
carry my head on the
Oh, that would
um
be so good if you could figure out how to do that.
um
I have the type of connections that you need. This can be arranged.
But again, what are women supposed to? I'm not clear what a drag parade involving women is
Mm,
about. Is it just, oh, can I dress as like an over the top, like garish makeup? Is that also count? Or
just participate in the same spirit of refusing to take it seriously, treating it as
maybe a clown outfit?
I think clown, maybe in honor of Charlie Sykes, a clown with a flamethrower.
Oh, except they're gonna arrest you for a flamethrower. That's not gonna pass.
But
the
seriously, the serious idea in addition to drag. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what if we organized a whole lot of people to just follow the parade at a discreet distance, walking silently in or out of drag?
I'm not, we'd have to think about, I don't know that that would do the thing. Because the thing is when the parade's over, they're going to shut down the TV coverage. You know what I'm saying? It's better to
Not
be
if there are
along.
100,000 people in back of them, they won't.
Well, I mean, that's ambitious, to be frank. I mean, I've been going to these protests and I think that's ambitious. Not to put down your influence, but I think that's a bit ambitious.
Plus, I think you might need a permit.
Yeah, that's the
You'd
other.
have to organize a
I
whole.
feel like they can't. I don't see how constitutionally they can bar people from attending the parade with signs
No,
In drag.
in
and
drag.
drag.
They can't
If they
impose a
do,
dress
I feel
code.
like we should test that and get arrested and go to court. Who's going to pay my legal fees? That's what I want to know. George Conway. George
Yeah, okay,
Conway, you're
George,
paying
we've
our,
drafted you to pay
he's
Holly's
paying
legal
all
fees.
of our legal fees. We're going to win. It's just, we'll have to go through the courts.
I'll represent myself. I
Oh,
totally love the idea of showing up in either super court or federal court and saying I'm representing myself and I move to dismiss on grounds that I am the least clown-like person involved in and showing up dressed as a clown.
I love this. I love this. Anyway, I thought Indivisible would put some sort of back call out there, and they're doing it everywhere but DC. I realize they are concerned about trouble. I realize they're concerned about some Tiananmen because there's going to be tanks. So they don't want someone run over by a tank in the street, although that would be dramatic. Um, and so I get why they're not, but I feel like it's like you got to do something. You can't let this stand. This is, but at the very least, this is going to rip up the roads of DC
Yeah.
like, in a terrible way. It's
So everybody, ideas in the comments. We are going to discuss them later in the week. And we're going to work on this. Everybody you know who knows how to do drag,
I don't know. How to
we,
do-
yeah, this is beyond my
The other thing to
expertise.
consider
But I
is
put
we'll probably
myself
be hot.
at the mercy of those who do. I Jonathan's broad point, which is just a refusal to take it seriously, is excellent. Because remember, if you are not mocking the situation, you are part of the situation. Um, and the other cool thing about the drag idea is it gives rise to excellent get ready with me videos. And so if we all create get ready with me to mock the, here's my clown nose, here are my fake breasts. We're gonna, I mean, that's good content, guys. Um, all right. What else is going on that we should talk about?
Uh, I'm like, I haven't been watching the news much this week, gotta say. So I did see the plane thing and the parade thing, but that's about it. So you tell me what has been going on.
Well, I'm I'm interested in the Ukraine situation and the apparent change in optics involving Volodymyr Zelensky and Donald Trump, and I'm wondering if Volodymyr Zelensky had the presence of mind to offer Donald Trump an airplane.
Well, Ukraine does not manufacture airplanes or have the loose cash to procure them. It so his bribery of Donald Trump is necessarily relegated to rare earth minerals futures, which he has made available, although in a very un-Qatar like fashion, he actually did not do it as a gratuity, which was what Trump was demanding. He preserved significant Ukrainian national interests and did not allow Ukraine to become a simple client resource extraction victim state. So, once colonized, twice, once, makes you wise, I think. But, it's not like Trump isn't demanding gratuities from Ukraine. Um,
they could give him one of their super cool drones, like, and they could have it like tricked out. They could give him a tricked out kind of drone that he could play with.
Yeah, I'm not sure they would want to, because he would give it to the Russians. Um,
Yeah.
you know,
Good point.
But
or
seriously,
just talk about it.
Yeah.
did either of you understand what's happening there? Didn't Rubio say 2 weeks ago that last week we would pull the plug if there was not a peace deal? And nothing has happened, as far as I can tell. There seems
That
to
was
be
all
no
a
there seems to be no policy except to tread water and get mildly annoyed at Vladimir Putin and mildly closer to Vladimir Zelensky. I'm either of you understand? Is there a situation at all? Or is this like,
Wait, are you asking
Liberation
if the
Day where
Trump
you do one
administration has
thing
a
and then
policy?
Yeah, I think the policy is exactly the same as the tariff policy, which is go big and back off. And um, there's no coherent policy. The good news, and I think it's very good news, is that there does actually seem to be a limit to the cliff that he is willing to follow Vladimir Putin off. And why that is an interesting question. But Putin responded to his very generous peace plan that Ukraine could never have accepted, generous to the Russians, that is, by saying, yeah, but we also need XYZ ABC, wherein XYZ ABC amounted to demilitarization of Ukraine so that next time we can eat up the rest. And the Trump administration does seem to have balked at that. And, you know, they also responded to Trump's proposal for a ceasefire by, saying, yeah, we want a ceasefire for the 3 days of our military parade, and then we want to go back to, killing civilians. And, uh, Trump does not like. He does seem to understand that he's being taken for a ride, which is a very interesting development. I don't want to overstate what it means, because to any rational person, what it means is, my God, my policy was wrong. You can't capitulate to these Russians without, without doing the thing. They, you know, you say, okay, but leave me a fig leaf, and they're like, great, now give us the fig leaf. Um, and you know, so I don't want to overstate it, because he's not yet followed it to its logical conclusion, which is doubling down on supporting Ukraine. Um, that said, he's in a materially better place than he was 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, and it is much better to have US and Ukrainian policy more or less aligned, more or less, than to have shouting matches between Zelensky and Trump in the Oval Office and cutoffs to U.S. aid and intelligence sharing. And so
yeah.
I
And
do think we've actually made a little bit of progress.
it
Also,
seems
I just want to add too that he's yet to cancel the Ukraine parole program like he has the rest.
That's right.
I attribute that to my art campaign. I think I have succeeded here, and I'm the main reason why that has not. But I'm very thankful. Also, it's probably because they're white refugees.
So
And new white refugees arriving this week, by the way. South Africans arriving.
yeah, I
That's a good
actually
story.
don't think it's because they're white. I think
Oh,
it's because um, I mean, they're locking up German tourists who are as white can be. I think the reason is that it's an added complexity in this relationship if we turn around and say 400,000 Ukrainians in America have to go home into a war zone. Um, that's a that adds complexity to an already complex situation with the Ukrainians and the Russians. I think he would, I don't, I, I don't think look, I don't want to give him,
Doesn't hurt their
it
white.
doesn't hurt that they're white.
Well, two things that I've taken note of without quite understanding is first, is it possible that Trump has developed something of a rapport with Zelensky because apparently they've been talking. They like have phone calls. And second, a well-informed
They're
person,
all perfect, by the way.
they're all perfect. A well-informed person who you both know, but who I won't name because I'm not authorized to, says that at this point, the Ukrainians are basically okay if they get air defense material from the US and intelligence sharing, and that's kind of all they need to hold the line for quite some time. And so
Well,
if
that
Trump
is,
doesn't cut those things off, and if he does talk to Zelensky, things become less dire than they seemed a month ago, right?
yes-ish. The Ukrainian front is eroding, but it's eroding slowly. And the Russians are expending an enormous number of people to achieve that slow erosion. Um, and so, yes, the big issues are air defense and intelligence, targeting intelligence in particular. Um, and yes, the Europeans can do a lot to supplement everything else. That said, can and will the Europeans always overpromise in terms of their commitment to something and then rely on us to actually do it? And can they actually, get over their internal collective action problems and make good on their rhetoric? You know, is always a question, and we won't know the answer to that question until they either do it or don't. Um, Number two, we don't know the answer to how depleted the Russians really are. They, you know, manpower gets harder and harder, but you can solve that problem with more and more repression, more and more North Koreans, Chinese volunteers, um, or you can fail to solve that problem. And I don't think the Russian capacity to throw human bodies at problems is non-trivial. Um, and so I agree that the situation is it's very serious. You might use the word dire, but it's not catastrophic. And um, you know, if the U.S. pulls the plug entirely, it's catastrophic. If the U.S. keeps a level of engagement, you know, it's not like Russia has broken through.
Well, Putin's strategy has been for Trump to deliver Ukraine. And if that strategy fails or is perceived to fail, especially by Putin, um, the the situation in terms of the balance for negotiating purposes and other purposes shifts materially in Ukraine's favor, I would think, especially
I
over
don't do the
time.
future. The present and the past are hard enough. I agree with you that Ukraine is in a much, much better situation if Trump is minimally minimally committed than if he's committed to fucking them. That makes an enormous difference. I don't know. I don't. I don't want to confidently say what the prospects are in either case. They're definitely better in the case in which Trump is playing ball than in which he's not. And that's why I give an absolute pass in my war on people who are kissing Trump's ass to the Ukrainians. They they get to do it. no Republican senator gets a pass for this. No, you know, uh, like think tank, whatever, no law firm. Ukraine gets to do it. And look, I have personally stood in front of the White House and chastised at a Ukrainian delegate. I had the microphone and I was talking to the crowd, and there were people, very good hearted people with anti Trump signs. And I scolded them and said, you can't let your anti Trump sign be seen next to a Ukrainian flag. And I understand it. If you want to say anti Trump things, we'll figure out a different way to do that. But I don't want a single picture of a Ukrainian flag next to, fuck Trump, fuck Vance. That's every single one of those pictures is going to end up on Breitbart and end up on, the president's desk.
There's a lot of that at these big protests.
I know in a big protest, it's kind of okay because everybody shows up and says what they want to say and people kind of understand that. But in a Ukraine protest,
okay, fair enough.
A Ukraine protest cannot be anti-Trump, and they have to deal with him. And we are out of time.
I didn't even get to tell you my covert margarita story, which is amazing.
Which is going to lead the show. It's going to lead the show tomorrow.
Okay,
so,
it's amazing. That was the covert operation. Is
all
this
right,
margarita?
We're going to do covert margaritas injected into our veins. Jonathan Rauch, who is not a Mormon woman but may dress as one for the parade. Holly Berkley Fletcher, who is a former CIA analyst.
Not a former Mormon, but very close.
Yeah, and kind of similar to a former Mormon. We will see you soon.